Welcome to Mediumship Matters, the podcast dedicated to spiritual growth, connection, and the reality of working with spirit. This season is proudly sponsored by Spirit Social, the brand new online community for the spiritually curious. It's a space where you can connect, share experiences, and access exclusive content without the noise of mainstream social media. With live events, expert insights, and a supportive community, Spirit Social is the place to deepen your journey. Take part in the free 6-month trial by visiting spiritsocial.co or downloading the app from the App Store now. Hello and welcome to Mediumship Matters with me, Hannah McIntyre. How are you doing? I am on the edge of my seat today because it is the 6th of November, which means that my new book, Spiritual Slaps Volume 1 Beginnings, has gone live. So please, if you're interested, download it, buy the paperback, buy the hardback, have a look. It's the autobiographical story of my development, and it feels really vulnerable. I think it's one thing putting out teaching that you know you mainly got from spirit and is really good. It's another thing sharing your story and your experience and your feelings. So this feels really mega and really vulnerable. My intention is in January to do a gathering on Spirit Social where we can all get together and talk about the book and talk about thoughts, feelings, and people can ask me questions about it. So get it now, read that bad boy so you can come along and be part of the fun. Okay, I'm still answering questions. We've reached June, so Alice here has only had to wait 5 months for me to respond. Brilliant. Here is Alice's question. I really love listening to your podcast and I find a lot of comfort in it, especially recently as I've been through a very traumatic event. In December, I lost my dad to suicide. I was wondering what your thoughts were when thinking of suicide from a spiritual perspective and whether you believe in pre-birth plans or not. I've heard that when someone dies by suicide that it is not in their pre-birth plan because it is their free will. But I've also heard that suicide can be predetermined before birth as a possibility for that soul. I would be really interested to hear your views on this topic and be really grateful if you do get a chance to respond. Thank you in advance, Alice. Well, I think it's both. And I know that's probably the most irritating answer that you could wait 5 months for, but that is my belief, just like all things. I know we take someone who takes their own life as an example, but there are, that will often be speedy and shocking, but there is also the slower ways of taking your own life. Smoking. I'm an ex-smoker. I would still smoke today if it didn't make you stink. Sad times, and if it didn't kill you. But I have to accept that it does those things, and so I don't. And I think it's very judgmental when people take their own life in a moment. But there are also the choices, the free will and the choices throughout things. We all know that eating too much sugar takes time off our lives. We know this. But you get less judgment for that. Still some judgment, but less judgment for that. So that's the first thing I want to say is there is the choice. And there are also many tiny little choices that people make that impact when they pass, when they leave this planet. And of course, on the flip side, everybody knows some old person that's defied logic and the odds and smoked 60 cigarettes a day since 1972 and lives to be 105. And that's what I mean, really, is that those people clearly have got some sort of death date that's been predetermined and nothing they do is going to affect that. And yet you get some people that smoke for 5 years and get lung cancer. And so I think that there are some souls that come here with a predestined death date or a predestined death experience, which can include suicide. And then I think there are some souls that we have the free will and the choice. And I think it depends on what we agree before we get here or what we go through while we are here. So because I can't really see spirit holding up a contract and saying, that's it, you've got to go now. Or I don't know, you know what I mean? I just can't see spirit being like, you've signed the contract, so this is what you've got to do, unless you still are, your soul is still choosing it in that moment, which I know is really harsh because I know there's so many people. I know people that were not ready to leave who left. So it's a complex situation, and I think there's only grey area as far as I'm concerned. I also want to talk here about, there have been some stories that I have seen on social media of people who have just been so determined to take their own life. And I think sometimes there's intervention that can help, and sometimes there just is nothing anyone can do. And I remember seeing the story of a young girl, and her family basically had her on suicide watch for years. And the second they relaxed, she accomplished her goal. She was just waiting for that moment. And so it's just a really, really sad, sad thing. And I'm so sorry, Alice, that you're going through this. And I don't know if there's comfort in knowing that your soul agreed to this experience because spirit are beyond time, so your soul knew this was the outcome, or whether that kind of makes it worse. And in honesty, I don't know. But all I can say to you is I'm sending you so much love. And I just want to reiterate for anybody that's listening, I do not believe that souls that take their own life get stuck here or suffer in the spirit world. I think they've done their suffering. And I do think there's some sort of healing process that souls go through. But of course, they are beyond time. So from our point of view, they are healed instantly. And so, Alice, I know you know this, but I'm just going to say it again. Your dad is fine now. Your dad is not struggling or suffering or in pain. Nobody who passes, that no one's soul is in that space, only feeling the sadness that they have caused you. So I'm sending you a huge, big virtual hug, and I hope that this helps. Lisa messaged in and said, "Hi, Hannah. I'm struggling with why it seems like spirit comes so easily for some and not others. I know it's not spirit and it's us, but I'd like to think I've been pulled, interested, open, maybe even desperate at times, but I still feel not wanted. Ha ha. For example, my sister has seemed to have so much happen spiritually over the years, even when she's had so much going on negatively in her life, even when she's been scared and gone through phases where she didn't want a connection. While the whole time I'm watching in awe and sometimes even like, hey, spirit, I'll take it. Pick me, and nothing. I know you might think I'm trying too hard, but I really am not, although I may have years ago. I've worked on myself to relax and, oh no, hang on. I've worked on myself according to what lessons I've been listening to at that time. I've given up, I've come back, I've tried relaxing with it, and still my sister's besties with spirit, and I'm Billy No Mates. I've spoken to you before about my ADHD, and I now know that shouldn't be getting in my way. Apart from ADHD, brains feel rejected a lot, so that's probably playing a part. I think maybe I'm needing to learn what's me and what's them, as they most likely have been working with me all this time, but I'm thinking it's me. Sorry, this is so long, and I may have answered my own question, but sometimes when I hear people on your podcast that were talking to spirits so easily and knew it was them, I wonder if I'm even supposed to be chasing this dream. Thank you for getting this far if you have, and thank you for being so honest in your experiences with mediumship. Same, Lisa. I wish I could say some soothing kind of, um, I don't bloody know. I mean, if you look at that last episode interview that I did with Courtney Dawson, what a lovely, lovely lady. Um, I'm not going to lie. In my humanness, listening to her see spirits walking in and know who they're for and see them matching, I just thought, great. It just feels like I'm eternally holding my hand up for a high five from spirit, and they're just leaving me hanging like an absolute twat. So I completely know how you feel. Does that help? Probably not, but that is the truth of it. Um, I will say this. I know that I have a very analytical mind, and I do believe that is part of my gifts. So I think the only reason I'm able to teach the way that I'm able to teach is because of my analytical mind. The reason why I can write so many books on the mechanics of mediumship is because I've got such an analytical mind. This podcast has been created by my analytical mind, but it's also the thief of my joy because every time I get anything, instead of celebrating it, I go, was that really me? Was that really that? Like, you know, getting the name Dave for a spirit, fantastic. I got a name, should be celebrating. But then I go, yeah, but what are the odds of that? Everyone's got a Dave. If you throw enough darts at a dartboard, you'll hit a bullseye eventually. Same old, same old. So I wonder really if, well, all right, I'm not seeing spirit like Courtney did, bar humbug. But generally speaking, in people's experiences with spirit, I wonder if they just have a slightly less analytical mind than me. And if I could turn off that part of me, because when I look back at my first experiences with spirit, before I knew anything about how spirit worked, and before I was really trying to do it, it was really magical. When I look at the stories when I was writing Spiritual Slaps and I was going back to the energy of it, there was so much magic and wonder in that. And now there isn't. Yay. Now there's just this constant, are you there? Yeah, what do you want? Kind of, am I making that up? Energy. Fun, isn't it? I don't know. I don't know. I think it's really hard. It's really hard to be one of us who feels like other people just seem to have it with such ease. Um, but I also know that's part of my gifts, because if I'd had it with ease, I wouldn't be able to teach. I wouldn't have had to do the analysis to work out why it works sometimes and why it doesn't. I wouldn't have had to look into things like that. I wouldn't have had the questions because I'd have just seen it. I mean, this is that thing to me. I mean, Courtney, um, obviously is a great teacher and has gone on a journey with spirit and doesn't see them like she sees people anymore. But generally speaking, if that is how your mediumship works, how can you possibly teach people that don't have that? I see spirit. I don't. Okay, well, I do. Okay, thanks for coming to my course. That's my TED talk. It's done. So it's always problematical. I don't know. I The one thing I will say, and this is, you will have heard me ask Courtney on the episode, do you still see spirits like people? Is for the most part, I find that people that say that, it's not a long-term thing. And I guess this is that key in all things, that medium that I went for that reading with, who very clearly tells everybody who'll listen that she gets names and she's an expert in names, but couldn't get any names that I recognised out of 17. It's that kind of, I know we want to present our best bits. And I think sometimes those of us that are analytical, we keep those bits to ourselves because we're not sure. Does that make sense? We've taken all the wonder out of it. Right. I don't know. I don't know. And this is that thing. I think that expectation creates, well, it creates your reality. I've been watching, has anyone been watching that Daisy May Cooper and Charlie Cooper ghost hunting thing? I mean, I said to my husband the other day, they're not going to see a ghost. And he was like, I thought you believed it. What? I thought you believed in spirit. And I said, yeah, I do believe in spirit. Of course I do. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen the way they want it to, because I don't think it does happen the way that they want it to. And, the other day there was a bang or something, and then it turned out to be, I don't know, something else. And then they'd set up a poltergeist trap on the table, and then it had moved, and then the cleaner came in and she'd moved it and tidied it up. And so what was my point that I'm trying to make? I just think that sometimes when you are in that childlike state of wonder in your mediumistic abilities, it makes it easier. And those of us that are slightly more cynical, we've still got spirit with us exactly the same, but we are cutting ourselves off a bit. And the only way to get through that is to do it with intention, which is why so many people don't follow the path. Because who wants to sit in a Zoom room with a stranger and say, oh, I don't know if I've got anyone here for you, and look like an idiot? Nobody. But some of us do it and some people don't. And so yeah, no help at all there, Lisa. I bet that was, again, worth waiting 5 months for. I just want you to know you're not on your own. I feel exactly the same. Like, do you guys actually want me on the team or not? And if you do download my book or read my book, you will see that that is basically the theme of the entire thing. All the way through. Just what the helly, you know? Um, hmm. If anyone else has any input on that, I'd love to hear it. Love to hear it. I've got another Alice, a different Alice here, who sent me a message here. I've been toying with sending this in. Your recent podcast, Mediumship Misdirection, prompted me to share my recent story. I visited a medium a couple of weeks ago, something that was a real treat and felt a bit self-indulgent, albeit in a good way. It's something I spent a bit of time researching, looking for someone in my area, so I really wanted to give it a go face to face. We had a clarity call before my booking, something she was keen on, and she asked me to bring a necklace, a notepad, and pen. When I got there, she asked me to tell about myself, my children, my work. I thought that was a bit strange. I assumed the little she knew, the better. She wanted to know all about my partner, and I shared all the things she asked me to share, assuming she was trying to help me feel relaxed before we got into the nitty-gritty. When I reiterated that I was there for mediumship, that I would love to know if a spirit guide or late family member was around me, as some things had happened recently and I was curious, she hurriedly asked me if I could feel anyone behind me. I think that's what she said, but it happened so quickly. And I said no, I didn't think so. And she abruptly told me that my third eye was closed. She said I would need to go on YouTube and download a meditation to open my third eye and probably listen to it quite a few times. Great, I thought to myself. I've come all this way to be told to listen to a YouTube video. For context, I've dabbled in a bit of tarot and do enjoy having tarot done, but this was not what I was here for. The medium then handed me some tarot cards and literally went into a card reading and parroted back to me exactly what I had said to her about my partner when I first walked in. It was almost word for word. She kept reassuring me he loved me, but in 3 weeks or 3 months, she wasn't sure which, I would get my answer. I had no idea why she was telling me this or what she was talking about, but apparently I would know when it would happen. I didn't want a card reading, and I certainly did not want to discuss anything to do with my partner. I'd asked for evidential mediumship. I wanted to understand if spirit was around me. I felt so stupid as I placed my necklace on the table, which she ignored. She asked me if I had a dog because of the dog that is represented in one of the cards. When I said I didn't have a dog, she said maybe I would get one day. She said, did I need an MOT? Oh my God. So, sorry, Alice. It's been a while since I read this. Just She said, did I need an MOT because I pulled the chariot card? I said, no, I didn't think so. I had no idea. She said, well, then maybe be careful, as there could be something wrong with the car. Something wrong with the cards. I felt pretty daft sitting there, but I was flabbergasted that this woman was literally telling me everything I had told her during our friendly chat. It was confusing, and it didn't feel in her home that you could speak up. I also felt that maybe she was right and my third eye was closed, but I'm a fairly open person and I'm not unfamiliar with healing and energy work, so that didn't really make sense to me either. As the session started to wrap up, I rather exaggeratedly picked up my necklace. She mentioned that if I really wanted to connect to spirit guides, that she could help me during another appointment. As I left her house, I felt foolish and robbed. I work hard for my money and I was embarrassed that I had parted with it so easily. I still don't understand what happened, how I got it so wrong. It was a huge disappointment, and I'm not even sure if I would put myself in that position again. Anyway, I appreciate that this is not the most exciting story in the world, and I'm pretty sure many have experienced worse, but it's one of those situations when you come away feeling robbed, gaslit, and angry at yourself. I urge listeners to speak up in a reading if they feel safe to do so, as I've been kicking myself for not doing that. Alice, I'm so grateful that you shared this because I think it's a really important story. I am so sorry. I know the disappointment well. Um, I mean, clearly, this lady didn't know what she was doing. And this is one of my absolute bugbears, right? Is clarity in offerings. I personally would not book with a medium that says, we'll just see what happens in the session. And I know that I'm a Capricorn, so that's a real Cap thing, but and I know you haven't here, Alice, so I'm not blaming you at all. Just want to make that clear. But first red flag for me is if a medium just says, we'll open up and we'll see what happens, because that just gives them that's like going for an MOT and then just putting air in your tyres and going, well, that's all we felt like doing today. No, I've booked an MOT. Do the MOT. If you've booked an evidential mediumship reading, you should get an evidential mediumship reading. I don't even like people that say it might be a spirit guide that steps forward. I think it's the ultimate get out of jail free card, to be honest. Either you are going to endeavour to connect to someone in spirit. It might not be who they want to hear from. That's a different kettle of fish, but you should be in that energy of providing evidence. And if you're just going to go, oh, well, I've got a penguin, I don't think you're doing the job. Now, I don't have a problem with spirit guide readings as long as you say that's what you're doing. Just like if someone books me for a card reading when they actually want evidential, they shouldn't have done it. It works both ways. So, number one, you're right to be disappointed. Number two, I don't know if you are British, Alice, but I'm British. And I have to say, there is no way on God's green earth that I would mention during a reading I'm not really getting what I want. I mean, I did try with that terrible reading I had to sort of say, oh, I'm really sorry, I can't recognise anybody, to try and gee her into, um, you know, trying someone else, trying a bit harder. I don't know. But I've had sometimes, I've had, not of my current hairdresser, but I've had bad haircuts. I will never forget my sister wanted a tiny little undercut at the nape of her neck. Really beautiful little thing she wanted. And she went to my hairdresser up the road and they literally took out half her hair, didn't grade it or whatever it is, when they cut it improperly. Anyway, my sister paid her a tip. Like, that is so British, isn't it? You've ruined my hair. You've taken off a good third of the hair off my head when it was supposed to be a 20th. This is not what I asked for. You clearly didn't have the skill set for it. It looks like it's been done by someone with no experience, but here's a tip. So Alice, I wouldn't be so hard on yourself for not saying anything in the moment, because I don't think I would have. Now, the audacity. And this is the thing. I mean, I know that it's really boring when you hear teachers and mediums talk about the importance of good teaching and going through the process. This is why. This is why. And this is why it's really important to not have teachers that are just yes people. So in my book, I've got a story about me seeing a medium, which is how I got the 5 frequencies, because it was carnage. And her teacher was there cheering her on. And this is one of the things that's really hard if you're a people pleaser like me to accept, is that your job as a teacher is not always to be nice. It's to tell people when their evidence wasn't evidential enough. It's to tell people when they're being vague. And it feels sometimes, I know how vulnerable it is doing mediumship and going through that process. And then you feel like you're just crushing them in that vulnerable space. But that's why it's really important that teachers do that, because otherwise the standard is, I'm going to have a chat with you beforehand and then I'm going to repeat it all back to you. And she may well think she's doing God's work. That is the crazy part. There's the people that are blatantly fraudulent, and then there are the people that are fraudulent but don't even know that they are, that think this is how mediumship works, that think they're doing something marvelous when they're doing something a bit poop. And please, I mean, my beg for you, Alice, is that you don't let that stop you. That you maybe do try. I mean, it's really hard when you really want an in person. I know that people always say to me, "I wish you did in person," and I don't. And I don't think I ever will again. That ship has sailed. I like not having to wear trousers. No, that's a joke. I like not having people coming into my home, and I don't want the pressure of renting a space. Um, yeah, sometimes people don't leave on time and stuff like that, and it's a whole can of worms that I have zero interest in opening. So I know that it's really hard when you're trying to get someone local and you want that in person. I think maybe try online. But as a general rule of thumb, just for anybody listening, the less we know, the better. I prefer to read for people I don't know. In fact, today I have got somebody booked in who had a card reading with me a month ago, and now they've booked in for a spiritual assessment, which is lovely because it obviously means that they enjoyed their card reading. But there's part of me that is like, I don't know what, it should have been enough. The card reading should have been enough. So did I miss something, or do you want to hear it again? And I feel awkward about that. There are people that book into, when they book in too quickly, sometimes I will say to them, it hasn't been enough time. I don't know. I don't know. There's not going to be a lot that's happened in a month. And so I personally prefer to know less. I certainly, when I'm doing evidential, I might say to you, like, who do you want to hear from in the moment? But I'd rather not know in advance, because my brain will get in the way. If you say to me, I want to hear from my mum, and it's a week before your appointment, I'll spend the whole week going, Alice's mum, whether I can help it or not. And then I'm not going to know what's imagination and what's spirit. Whereas if I say, who do you want to hear from? And you say my mum, and I do it in the moment, I haven't really got in the way in the same way. So I think you're quite right with that instinct. I mean, what would you do? Let's be honest. We can all talk about the theory of this, but the fact of the matter is, if I was in that space, I'd have talked to her. I'd have gone, okay, this is what she needs, assuming she was going to go deeper with it or more detailed with it or shift something in it, and then um, I would have felt very disappointed when she didn't. And um, so, can I just say, as somebody that dabbles in card readings, the Chariot. It's speed and things changing and shifting and movement. But I wonder, am I going to get an MOT for somebody? But also, right, like spirit. I mean, maybe she's just working psychically with her cards, which is another kettle of fish completely. But if you do believe your cards are messages from spirit, have they not got anything better to say than your MOT's due? Like if your MOT's due, your MOT's due. Yeah. And as for third eye blockages, kiss my ass. That really annoys me. Energy responds. If you, I mean, I don't, I think most of us know, I don't believe in the chakra system the way it's portrayed. I think it's a tool for entry into different layers of energy within your body. So there we go. I think sometimes if you want to have a stronger connection to spirit, you need to have a stronger connection to your instinct, which is sacral, solar plexus kind of space. See, I don't know what I'm talking about. There's this, what a lovely way to gaslight somebody. Oh, your third eye's blocked. Disgusting. Did you know your third eye was blocked? It's going to affect me with my open third eye and my clear third eye from being able to do mediumship because your third eye is blocked. Grim. Bollocks. I mean, in honesty, I would expect most people who book in for a mediumship reading to have a blocked third eye, if we did believe in blocked third eyes, which I don't, but because most of them will be muggles. When my friend got my grandfather through that set me on this journey, I didn't even have a third eye. Like it was non-existent. It was so blocked. There was a brick wall in front of it that had been plastered over. Like, didn't stop her. How would your third eye stop me in my mediumship? Atrocious. Atrocious. Um, yeah, just another pinnacle of our wonderful industry flying a flag of greatness for the world. Great, isn't it? Right, one more for you guys today. Sorry about this. Well, I'm not sorry. It is what it is. Deal with it. My ranty podcast. Magdalena's messaged in. Hi, Magdalena. How are you? Um, Again, about the mediumship and misdirection episode. I get you so much, even after I don't even know how many readings. I often feel like a beginner before an evidential session. I have to convince myself that I can obviously do it. When I read my clients' reviews, I am of course glad, but I wonder, who are they talking about? Who is this person? Like it wasn't me, which of course to a big extent it wasn't, because it was spirit. So this makes it a little bit hard, because we do need to let go of control, and that is so tricky. Never ever in my previous jobs I would have doubted my ability to do them well, but as mediumship is partly out of our hands, it makes us insecure. Strangely enough, when I was listening to this very episode, I almost got into a car accident. The other driver honked at me, and I instantly apologised when he gave me the "a woman behind wheels" obviously look. Only after calming down and analysing the situation again, I realised it actually wouldn't have been my fault. But in that moment, I took the blame automatically nonetheless. Is this a woman thing? Similarly to when something is not working in mediumship as we expect, we tend to think it's our fault. It does get better with time, though, because I've more stories to convince my doubting mind. Once I had a reading with a young woman who wished to have an evidential reading. I was not very happy about the reading because the spirit that came through said things like, "You are very nicely dressed." And I thought, What a strange thing to say. That is not evidence. And it felt like I would like to give compliments and make her feel good instead of giving her some hard facts. But I delivered it anyway. Then the deceased loved one went on talking about his anxiety issues and her anxiety issues, etc. A very strange read. Months later, I learnt on that very day the young woman had had an appointment with the doctor about her anxiety issues, and shortly before our session asked her mother about her clothes, wanting to know if she was dressed appropriately for a meeting with her ancestors. What a spin to the story. But in that moment, it just felt so awkward for me. So the thing is, as mediums, we literally don't know what we were talking about, and that makes us insecure. But it is not our story to know, just to tell. And that is difficult because our human side is curious and wants to know. And then there's these people who have the audacity to honk at people or brag even when they are in the wrong. And that makes us question ourselves. I think we just have to live with that discomfort and get on with it. And as you said, step back from the ridiculous expectations we put to ourselves. And sometimes our misdirected clients do, and stay true to true mediumship. It's so true, Magdalena. And this is one of the things I've been saying to my students recently, is that the only difference between me and them is that I've put myself in the vulnerable situation of doing mediumship so much that I now know that even though I'm nervous about my ability to do it, I know that I've done it 20 times before, 100 times before, 1,000 times before, and that helps. But that is the only difference. And we have to just keep doing it and doing it. And you're so right. It's not supposed to make sense to us. It's so fascinating. And that is why I love, for me, that form of mediumship where you are surrendering to spirit. That's where magic is for me. And that's kind of, I know that names are great and important, but that's why I love more textured mediumship than just names. Because if you were just going, would you recognize a Simon? Would you recognize a Jeanette? It's two of the chipmunks. Alvin, Simon, Theodore. I can't remember all the girl ones, but I know there's a Jeanette. That's really funny. Would you recognize any of the chipmunks? But sorry, just pulled myself totally out of what I was saying. But like when you are giving those kind of things that feel weird and are just throwaway, and they are actually the little nuggets of magic, and the more of those you get, the better. But obviously, there'll be little nuggets that we've all thrown out there that we never hear about, that somebody somewhere is talking about, that we don't know if they land. We don't know if they made sense. I was doing a reading for somebody this morning, and she was saying that she'd asked a question at one of my DEMs about her job. And I had said, you don't need to worry about your promoting in your current job. There's another job coming. It's going to take you off in a different direction, blah, blah, blah. And obviously, I mean, I don't remember, in honesty, doing that reading because I do so many. And when you're on stage and you're doing them, you're not really connecting with people and their faces. You're just connecting with the energy of the message. But that all happened. It all came true. She got her reading. She got her job. She got an offer from somewhere she wasn't expecting it, which is just bloody amazing. But if she hadn't booked in with another reading with me, I wouldn't even have known that. I wouldn't have known that I was right. So there's so much like that in mediumship, unfortunately. And, there is a safety you're right, in any other form of job, I think. In any other form of job. If you're an actress, you know your lines. If you're a musician, you know the music. If you work in a completions department for a mortgage lender, like I used to, you know the forms that you need. You know what needs to be on them. You know the process. Mediumship is totally vulnerable every time. And even an artist who may not know how their painting is going to turn out only really offers people the finished product and gets to explore it kind of privately, not with them stood over them with their arms folded watching and waiting for them to deliver the goods. It's a very unique job, I think. Well, on that note, this week's episode is finished. Thank you all very much for listening. If you could please do me a favour and review stuff. Like, if you're listening to podcasts, can you rate it? Can you review it? Can you share it? I know these things are so boring. I know this, but I need it. I really, really need it. And if you do read any of my books, if you could review and rate those too, that is the magic fairy dust that gets me seen on Amazon. And I'd be very, very grateful. I will speak with you all again soon. Have a good one.